What's up, homies? Welcome back to a very special video here on Heroes Reforged. Now, we've been talking about the comic book Invincible quite a bit. We've done a comic book series where we've gone through and talked about the comic book at length. We're going to be talking about the series when it drops on March 26th. So excited! But before we get into that, Hector, we have a very special guest joining us today. Why don't you tee them up and let the people know who we're talking to today?
This is pretty incredible because I have been reading this writer's work for a very, very long time, and I am a massive fan. And so much of his work shaped who I am and a lot of my experiences and stuff. And nowadays, the guy knows me and he knows my face and he knows my name. It's bizarre. It's crazy. But he is an incredible writer. You know him as the co-creator of books and worlds like The Walking Dead, Invincible, and maybe the most important of all, Battle Pope. We're talking to Mr. Robert Kirkman. He's here. Robert, thank you so much for talking to us, man. This is a thrill.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Harold.
I should have seen that coming. Yep, nicely done. He's very funny, this guy. This writer, it turns out, he's a pretty funny guy. We have got a bunch of questions for you, Robert, because we're so excited about the Invincible series. We now, all three of us, have at least begun, haven't finished yet, but begun the amazing Invincible comic book series, which is my favorite comic series of all time.
I'm going to derail you now. Didn't you recently say publicly that you have you finally finished Invincible? Have you still not finished the series?
So our first question is, no, the behind the scenes, Robert, is that I love the series so much that when the last issue came out, I put off reading it because I never wanted it to end. And in a lot of ways, I was right because the Invincible world is not ending. We're getting a new series that's dropping soon. And my plan was I was going to save that last issue for when the three of us read it together. And we have been reading the comic book one volume at a time, including all the tie-in stuff. I'm talking capes, tech jacket, and we're going to get to it hopefully by the end of this year, reading everything. And I will read the last issue with Adam and Augustine. When we've all read it. That's how excited I am about it.
It's a big deal. But we've been treating... go for it, Robert.
But I was just going to say, you've read up to 143. You just haven't read 144.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look,
so no spoilers, please.
Weird. I won't spoil anything. That's super weird. But I like that all three of you guys are going to get there together. That's a bromance. That's going to be cool.
Our first question for you, talking about how this series came together. Robert, when did you think, at what point did you think that Stephen Yeun might make a perfect Mark Grayson?
I mean, very early on, I think, I worked with him a lot on Walking Dead and if anybody knows anything about me, you might find it to be somewhat believable that I was very much offering a lot of my other books to all of the actors who would take them on the set. So Stephen got some Invincible comics very early on like season 1 or 2 of the show. And Stephen, there's a few actors on The Walking Dead, but Stephen is one that actually really enjoys comics and reads comics frequently. He would text me from time to time from a comic book shop and say, hey, I'm at a comic shop. What should I buy? And I would, recommend all my books. And he'd be like, it's something you didn't write, please. Like, come on. But yeah. And so I knew that he liked comics and, he read Invincible and seemed to enjoy it. But when it came time to adapt this into an animated series, I just knew that he would be the absolute perfect guy. Not only because of what a great actor he is and what a good relationship I have with him, but he works so incredibly hard. We used to tell this story to make fun of him at panels, but the first time he ever shot anything for The Walking Dead, it was a scene of him running to pick up Rick's hat. And we filmed it. We kind of filmed the shot during the filming of the pilot because we weren't going to have that area to film in when we came to film the second episode. And so that little snippet was filmed during the pilot. And he came to set and met Andrew Lincoln. And I got some photos on my phone of Andrew Lincoln and Stephen Yeun, of Rick and Glenn meeting for the first time. And I was like, I can't believe this. They're shaking hands and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But then he's, got all costumed up and he's supposed to run through a bunch of zombies, grab Rick's hat and run away. And we filmed it 5, 6, 7 times. And it's hot in Georgia. and we filmed it like I want to say midday, and he had skipped breakfast that day, I think, because he was nervous, and he blacked out, and so there was a bit of a medical emergency where he blacked out, and we were like, dude, you got to eat breakfast. Like, what are you talking about? But as much as we poke fun at the guy, like, from day one, there's a level of dedication there that I think should be commended. He kept pushing, even though I'm sure he was exhausted and feeling a little woozy. I don't know if anybody has actually blacked out from, overexertion and not eating, but there are a lot of warning signs before you get there that he was pushing past. And, he's just a remarkable actor. I mean, even, just from that scene, I mean, the way he grew over the course of The Walking Dead, the way he evolved that character, just the level of effort that he puts into everything that he does, I knew he would be perfect for this.
What was it like revisiting your early Invincible work to produce this new series? Going back into a lot of like the early issues and looking back at that and seeing how you feel about it now versus when you originally actually created those books.
Yeah, that's a process I really enjoy. I mean, it's almost turned the animated series into kind of a second draft. As a comic book writer, I don't write a lot of second drafts. I feel like the artist drawing it is a second draft, and then me going in and, making the lettering work with the art is a second draft, and, or a third draft, I guess. And so I feel like I'm tinkering with things as they're produced. But when I write comic book scripts, I just kind of like write the story, and then I, let the artist do what they do. And I feel like they're going to call me if something doesn't work. But so it's nice to get back into the story and go, okay, well, this scene could be longer, this scene could be shorter. I could build up to this moment a little better and give it some more weight. It would actually be, a little bit more dramatic if this event happened before this event instead of this event happening after this event, and getting into kind of, tinker and rearrange things in a fun way, not in anything that's, too drastic. Like, it's not like, you're going to watch the Invincible animated series and be like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this isn't Invincible at all. It's very much Invincible, but just getting in and turning the knobs and like tweaking things here and there is a lot of fun. And also, I'm working with, a lot of, really talented writers on the show. And, it's great to be able to, work with them and have their input, and it's really great. So I get to sit back and like let them look at the comics and say, let's change this. Let's pump this up and go, oh, okay. Yeah. You guys clearly, are better at this than I am. So, by all means, let's elevate this. It's a lot of fun.
For me, part of the reason why I love animation and movies is because when I was watching some behind the scenes footage, it all felt like magic to me. So can you talk to us a little bit about like some of the milestones you hit behind the scenes, seeing some of your characters come to life, maybe the first time you saw the animation come back, maybe some of the first recording sessions, hearing JK like talk for the first time over somebody. I don't want to give out too many spoilers, but I think we know who that is. But can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Look, I don't like to talk specifics. Some of it is tear-inducing, but because the first time you hear J.K. Simmons giving dialogue, I mean, I will spoil that the sequence where Nolan sits down with Mark and tells him, here's where the Viltrumites come from. There's a planet Viltrum in space and blah, blah, blah. And he does this long monologue and it kind of cuts to different things. I mean, you can see a little bit of it in the first trailer, but that scene is very much intact. And that's a scene, if you've read Invincible, that gets rewritten and revisited many times throughout the series for reasons unknown. I don't know. But hearing J.K. Simmons say those words, and some of them are taken verbatim from the comics. A lot of them are improved because, some of that stuff is clunky. I was 22. But hearing him come in and do that is crazy. I mean, it's just a indescribable experience to, like I was the biggest fan of Oz when that show was on. And, I obviously love Whiplash and he's a great J. Jonah Jameson and everything. But like he's, one of the best living actors around. And he's, talking about the planet Viltrum.
I know,
Yeah.
Robert,
Yeah,
you've told me before, and you've put out that you've recorded some of those early recording sessions on your phone secretly. Has Amazon given you the green light to release some of that stuff once those episodes have come
we
out?
gotta
'Cause
see that behind the
yeah,
scenes stuff. We gotta see that
uh,
stuff.
why would I wait for a green light from Amazon? I mean, I don't know.
Oh.
It's funny because my your iPhone just names the files based on your location, and so there was a
Mhm.
cafe that was across from the recording studio, and so they thought I was in the cafe. So all of these recordings on my phone are just like blank cafe, this date, this date. It's like, so it seems like I recorded a bunch of stuff in a cafe, which is not the case. But
a bunch of strangers
but yeah, I
drinking
mean,
coffee in a
Yeah.
cafe.
yeah, I might release some of that stuff at some point. I mean, I would definitely take some creepy photos. Like they'd be in the booth, and I'd just be like,
In slow-mo.
I love it. Robert, tell us about, you've got Corey Walker, Ryan Otley. They are involved in the show. How did
yeah.
that come about, and
awesome.
what's their contribution been like? That is so cool.
Corey is, the co-creator of Invincible. There's no one that has had more input, in the creation of these characters and how they exist and who they are, than him really. Ryan and I, did the bulk of the issues, and so I think Corey's contributions sometimes get a little bit overshadowed. But Corey was with me every step of the way. Like if I'm sitting there going, I've got this idea for Bulletproof, and I'm going to do this and this and this, like he would be there going, well, it'd be cooler if this happened, or maybe this could happen. And so I couldn't, and again, Ryan's accomplishments and contributions to Invincible, undisputed. I mean, he breathed life into things and took fight scenes into directions I could have never imagined. And really plussed up everything along the way. The idea of going into an animated series without them involved, I think, is absolute lunacy. Then when you factor in the fact that Corey Walker is the undisputed top 10 best comic book character designers in history, he disputes this, but every other artist of note would agree with that, and I think that is important. So I couldn't imagine not doing it with him, but also he was available. He was in between comic projects and is always looking to do new things and stretch his wings and things, and so we kind of moved him into animation and made him the lead character designer of the show. So when you're watching this series
Wow.
and you see how unique it looks, it doesn't look like any other superhero cartoon. It doesn't really look like any other cartoon. It's because Corey designed all these characters, so all the way down to the look and the feel of how they move and how they look and all that stuff comes from somebody who hasn't worked in animation before, so he's bringing a lot of new influence into it, and I think that's really great. But yeah, I mean, you gotta have these guys involved, and the show is better for it.
What would you say was something that really surprised you about the animated show? I know you talked a little bit about how unique it looks compared to a lot of other stuff. Was it that, or was it, you also talked about, you were just mentioning how much you knew about what it was to undertake something like this? Like, what was the thing that really surprised you about tackling this animated series?
I don't know. I mean, it's a lot. I think that the fact that we're able to do hour-long episodes, like it never ceased to amaze me how much we could accomplish in an episode, and just how many different scenes we could do, we use a lot of that for character development. I feel like there are some fans out there that are like, so the first episode's going to cover like 30 issues, right? And it's like, no, it's not. Like that would be a terrible show. Like nobody wants that. And with the cast that we have, like we're able to just wring like these really emotional scenes out of them. I was making this hand motion, and it didn't quite make it onto the camera, and I was glad that it didn't when I did it, and then it like just really took me out of what I was saying. So I had to turn it into a thing, but there's just a lot of there's a lot you can accomplish.
Let's just all do this for the rest of the interview now.
Cool. So anyway,
okay, now just turn your head and cough, and then I think we're
and
good.
then I don't know what to do with my hands.
So getting back into it. I will also say
Yeah.
the way violence plays in animation is much different than it does in still images. And
Yeah.
Invincible is a show that gets very violent at times, and is always a little more startling than I would have expected in a good way. So that's really cool. Watching the characters come to life. I mean, I don't know. There's a billion different things that just absolutely floored me
Wow.
and moved me, like in the process of making this.
Right.
Getting to watch animatics and see things come to life, and then getting to see how the animation studio like puts color into it, and then working in the sound and things, and it just becoming like a well-rounded, complete thing. It's also, I'll talk about like live action versus animation. There's a lot of like editing and different things that you can do in live action to like mold something, but you're working with set footage. In animation, there's, you can do a small number of retakes and things where you can be like, okay, let's tweak this and tweak that. You can trim things in really cool ways, and the scenes, through the animatic process all the way through animation are evolving so much as time goes on. It's almost like you
Yeah.
do 3, 4, 5, 6 drafts of the script, and then you do like 10 drafts of the animatic, and then you're doing 20 drafts of the animation, and you're honing
Mhm.
things like little by little as it goes along. It's a tedious process, but it's really fun and
Yeah.
rewarding.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit by saying you're not going to do 30 issues per episode, which is fantastic. I love it. Love that idea. But so how many seasons? I know you can't really say, but how many seasons would you like this show to be if it was up to you, like completely?
I think that we could conceivably cover some form of the existing material, 5 to 7 seasons. I think 5 would be possible. I think 7 would be the best. We'd have the room to do it.
Yeah.
There's obviously some stories that we're not going to cover, some things that'll, get trimmed because, there's some tangents along the way in the Invincible series that don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to be an essential part of the run. But that said, I think that in an ideal world, if I had a magic wand and could do whatever I wanted, I think it would be a lot of fun to have the animated series actually go past the material from the comics.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's possible, but you're asking me, if I could do whatever I wanted. I
Yeah,
think that would be
no,
really cool.
I mean,
Who
That's
at
exciting,
Amazon
though.
do I need to bother to make that happen, Robert? I mean,
yeah, who do we need to call?
who do I?
Everyone needs to
Who do
open
I-
the Amazon Prime platform when the show launches,
Gotcha.
and they need to play the
Okay,
show
okay.
on a loop every day for the rest
Got it,
of their
got it.
lives.
Okay,
You got it.
deal.
You got it.
Got
Well,
it.
we can do
I'll
that
have
here
a-
very easily.
I have a dedicated laptop. I'll just run
Yeah.
that show all times.
Robert, real quick, I'm in love with so many of the characters in the Invincible universe, and I know you talked about how you and Corey were co-creating so many of these characters together when it initially started. But I have to ask, because we have you here, like, do you remember how you came up with some of these characters? Adam, Eve, Rexplode, Duplicate, Battle Beast. Was it just like the name and then you reverse engineered what the character was because the names are so damn clever? Like, do you even recall this many years removed how you
Yeah.
came up with each of these guys? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I think that interestingly, the original team is kind of divided in half between Corey and I. Corey was living with me at the time, and we were developing Invincible while we were finishing up a miniseries called Super Patriot America's Fighting Force that we had done for
Oh, yeah.
Eric Larson.
We've read it.
And
Oh yeah.
You read it.
We read it. Awesome. You've read that, but you haven't read the final issue of Invincible. But anyway, so like I would wake up in the morning and come into the like little studio that we were working in, and Corey would be like, "Oh yeah, I did this sketch and this sketch last night," or whatever. And as I recall, Adam, Eve, and Robot were just kind of drawn like whole cloth, like sitting there. And I can't remember. I'm going to say that Corey came up with the name Adam Eve, which I thought was brilliant because it's like Adam and Eve, but instead of Adam, it's Adam, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it just sounds really catchy, and it's it ends up being like one of the most original superhero names of many years. Especially when you look back on like Spider-Man and Batman, once you run out of that convention, things get a little, the Vision.
Robert,
those are
we
cool,
know,
but
We know how
I
you
know.
feel about those naming conventions because we read that Spider-Man crossover as
Yep,
well,
we
and it
definitely read
was
that.
great. It was great.
Great. So you see where my mind is. But
Yeah.
and Robot was originally called Robot Boy, which maybe we should have kept because he's neither a robot nor a boy, which I think is funny. But
No.
we got rid of. I thought Robot sounded cooler, and I just love the aspect that we were going to eventually introduce that he wasn't actually a robot. And then Rexplode and Duplicate were characters that I had come up with the names for. I did a very rough design for Rexplode that is super shitty, that Corey adapted into what we ended up with. And then Duplicate, I think, was pretty much just a name that Corey came up with a visual for, and then that's how that character came about. But I think one thing that's important to note, Vince Gilligan talks about how Breaking Bad was very much like written in the writers' room and written as they went along, and the scene of him in the Denny's like a year later where he has the M60 machine gun in his trunk, like they didn't know what that was for or what they were going to do with it. And I think it's a lot of people who aren't writers think like, okay, well, these stories have to be planned out far in advance and they have to have everything mapped out or it doesn't work. The discovery of a story as you go along is, to me, the most fun aspect of it. And Invincible is chock full of like scenes and tidbits where I would go, I don't know. I guess there's a guy in a room and he opens a box and the box is glowing. That's a cool page. And then I would make a note of that. And then as I'm plotting issues, I'd be like, okay, well, I haven't shown what that box is yet. Let me see what that is. What could glow in that box? Alien fetus. Let's the alien fetus. That's cool. Like let's make it that. And then I have him pull an alien fetus out of the box. And then 5 issues later, I'm like, well, is that thing going to grow into a monster? Is he going to eat it and get superpowers? Like there's 1,000 different things that can happen with it. That spitballing process is a lot of fun. So what I'm getting at is the character of Adam, Eve, Robot, Duplicate. I don't even know that we had 100% laid out that Robot wasn't a robot from minute one.
Wow.
These things happen over time. That's kind of the fun of monthly comics. I definitely had absolutely no clue what Adam Eve's origin was in that series, and that was something that I came up with. I came up with Adam Eve's origin basically because I knew I was eventually going to kill her and reveal that her powers kick into a new level once she is like near death and allow her to like rebuild herself. And so then I was like, okay, well, let me backdoor that into an origin story. And then that's how we
I think Adam just got real. I think Adam here just got real mad that something was spoiled for him that we haven't gotten to in the comic yet.
I feel like I should have not done this interview. Goodbye.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's great.
Because if there's anybody who's going to spoil stuff for you, it's the writer of the damn comic.
People. If it was Hector or Augustine, I'd be so upset. But the fact that it's you, I'm like, I can't be mad at this.
Hey, the
that's
story's
just
like,
for instance, that doesn't actually happen.
Do you have a favorite member of the Guardians of the Globe, and why is it Aquarius?
Man, Aquarius is super cool. It's funny because Aquaman is actually a cool character, but he, is the punching bag of comics. Like, oh, he talks to fish, like whatever.
Yeah.
But Aquarius is very much the embodiment of, oh my God, isn't Aquaman lame? But no, I don't know. I mean, I think my favorite day. I don't like any of the Guardians of the Globe.
Wow.
As like a new reader of the book, it was really fun to like turn the page and see how much those characters are like homages to characters that I loved reading growing up. I think that's like what I love about the book so much is like you don't have to know anything about anything. And if you know the slightest thing about any character that you've read before, it's like, oh, this is very familiar. And then you turn the page, you're like, this is new and different. And I think that's like what sucks you into the book immediately, which I love so much.
Well, analogs are a tried and true staple of comics. Shazam, Captain Marvel, the DC Captain Marvel, is an analog of Superman. You could argue back in the day that Spider-Man was in a lot of ways an analog of Superman just because he used the same color scheme and was a human being who had powers. You could almost argue that any superhero is an analog of Superman if you boil it down to those essential elements. But you have the Squadron Supreme. You have Kurt Busiek's Astro City book with Brett Anderson. That is the like one of the greatest comics ever written, and it lives and breathes on like really interesting analogs of known superhero characters. And so when it came time to do what we did with the Guardians of the Globe, like I knew, I guess this could be a bit of a spoiler. I knew they weren't going to be around long, in the comic book form at least. Have you not even read the first?
No,
what?
we got to that point. We got to that part.
We're up to
I'm not
volume
trolling
7.
you.
Yeah.
They might be around much longer in the animated series. That could be something that we changed. But what I'm saying is I needed to have a shorthand for those characters. I needed you to be instantly familiar with them and have some sense of who they were with a very brief scene. And so that's why we incorporated those analogs. Also, because they weren't going to be around that long, we weren't going to work very hard on them. One of the most fun aspects of working on the animated series is that we have expanded those characters out substantially, and Corey has come in and redesigned them extensively. The Guardians of the Globe look very different than how they look in the comic book. It's been a lot of fun to do a lot more with them in the show.
Speaking of that, this is interesting because you kind of already spoke about Super Patriot. Are we gonna see any familiar faces like Brit? Because we're reading these as well. We're reading Brit. We're reading Tech Jacket. We read Capes. Is there gonna be a Spider-Man cameo at any point?
Well, let me go ahead and kill the internet speculation before we have another WandaVision situation. There is no Spider-Man cameo in the animated series.
Okay.
But there may be a Benedict Cumberbatch cameo, right? There may be a Benedict Cumberbatch cameo, is what we were saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is going to come out of the screen and hug you. These are the things that you should expect from the Invincible series. I don't want people watching the show going, where's that Spider-Man cameo?
Sure.
Possible that Disney and Sony agreement is extremely complicated, and working in an Invincible appearance was a bridge too far. So I wouldn't expect that anytime soon. When it comes to the other characters, I think that, I would love, in success, I would love to do a Astounding Wolfman series on Amazon Prime. I'd love to do a Tech Jacket series on Amazon Prime. I think that there is a real opportunity there to do some really cool interconnected stuff if we were able to get multiple animated series going. That said, you guys are going to have to put your Amazon Prime up on loop and just watch Invincible nonstop, or that's never going to happen.
Already done.
Great.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity there. When it comes to things like Savage Dragon and other characters that, I don't have ownership of or anything, that's a logistical nightmare. In comics, I can just call Eric Larson up and be like, "You cool if Savage Dragon shows up in the background here and we're buddies?" And he's like,
Wow.
I don't care. I wouldn't even notice. I don't read your book. He's kind of a jerk. But he doesn't say that. I'm kidding. But, when it comes to the animated series, it's a whole thing where Amazon could, if I could call Eric and do that, but then Amazon would think they own Savage Dragon, and then if Savage Dragon showed up somewhere else, they'd be like, well, that's a lawsuit. There's a lot more logistical hurdles to making something like that happen. So that makes it a little bit unrealistic. But look out for Shadowhawk in episode 3. It'll surprise you all.
Shadowhawk. So what you're doing now is you're confirming the Kirkman. You're confirming the Kirkman cinematic universe, basically, at this
There
point.
we go. That's right. Yeah. Kirkman Cinematic Universe. Robert, does this voice cast know where their characters might potentially go in the future of the story, or have you guys kept some things from them, either because you want to hold on to some stuff or because it might change from the direction of the book? You talked about how we may see the Guardians of the Globe a little bit longer and things like that.
Well, Steven knows. One of the things that really just cemented how much I love Steven Yeun is in one of the earlier recording sessions, he did his recording sessions were the longest because he had the most dialogue. And I think an hour into it, maybe half hour into it, we had a little break, and he kind of pulled me aside, and he was like, am I sounding too naive? And I was like, no,
Mm.
it's sounding great. And he was like, okay, I want to start him in a place where he's really naive, because I know where the character goes, and I have to have a place to build to. And so I wanted to pull him down to his most childlike and most naive early on. And it's like the lines are written, but like hearing an actor say like, okay, you've got these lines of dialogue that you wrote, but I am going to, I can give you 17 different shades of these 4 words that you wrote, that mean 17 different things, depending on how I interpret them. It's just an amazing, aspect of acting that always excites me. But the fact that he knew, like, in Success, when we're at season 10 of the animated series, like, I have to be playing the character this way, and I can't play him here. If I start here, I have to start him down here. And that
That's
was
awesome.
that was really remarkable. I think that every actor is different, and you have to respect that process. I work with a lot of actors on things, and they don't read the comics. Some of them will refuse to read the comics. I'll name a name. I think I yeah, I'm like 99% sure I've had this conversation with Andrew Lincoln, but Andrew Lincoln doesn't want to know what's coming. And I know early on in Walking Dead, a lot of the actors were reading the comics, and then stories would change, and it would kind of annoy them, because they would have been like preparing for this, and then we ended up doing this in the show, and they'd be like, well, I had my head wrapped around this, and now this is happening. And they're like, I like this. This is cool, but I need to stop reading the comics, because you realize that actors, they know the characters that you're writing more intimately than you ever will, because they have to pretend that they are those characters.
Wow.
Andrew Lincoln also pulled me aside at one point, and he was like, I was thinking about Rick's backstory and his childhood, and what would make him the man that he is today. And I came up with this, and it was this like really long, involved story of like Rick's parents getting sick, and him having to care for his brother, and accepting responsibility of the family, and how he had to do this at a young age, and how it constructed him into the man he became, and why he has such a strong sense of responsibility. And it was just like all this amazing stuff, and I was like, and he was asking me, like, is this kind of like what you were thinking? And I was like, yeah, sure, man. That's exactly what I was thinking. Great, cool. Because I don't want to be like, you have now thought more about this character than I ever have or ever
Yeah.
will in my entire life. But yeah, so for many different reasons, like, some actors read the comics, some actors don't read the comics, and it's all part of like what goes into their craft. Just because Steven is planning for this, journey that he knows ahead, and that's his way of doing things. If another actor, wants to actually feel the surprise of what his character is going through, the same way that his character in real life would experience that surprise, like, that's another method, and that's another thing that helps them get the performance that they get. So I think it's all different kinds of things that go into their performance, and I just find that stuff endlessly fascinating, which is why I'm rambling on about this, and I don't even remember what your original question was.
To pivot it a little bit into like the making of it, the last year has been, you obviously have been working on this longer than a year, but
Yes.
in the last year alone, a lot of things have changed and shifted, and we've had to adapt to so many different, I would imagine that we would probably be doing this in person as opposed to doing this like this. But how has that affected how you guys have changed things, not changed things, had to adapt your pipeline? What has that process been like over the course of the last year while you've been trying to finish this?
It cost us time. So if there hadn't been a pandemic, you guys would have already watched the first season of Invincible. I will say that. But as far as like, did it change the episodes? Did we change anything because of the pandemic? No, you're getting the exact show that you would have gotten regardless. There was no fundamental change. Little things like ADR and things that are done late in the game had to happen remotely as opposed to in person. All the voice recording sessions were done in 2019. Leading up into the animation, and so that stuff was all done in person before we ever knew what COVID-19 was, and there was a hiccup when the pandemic hit, and everybody had to transition to working remotely, where everybody went from working in like offices and cubicles to working in home offices, and so we had to figure out ways to get that technology to the home where needed, because we had like high-end like editing software and big computers and things like that, and everybody's working on Cintiqs that they have at the office that they may not have at home. And so we had teams in LA and Vancouver and South Korea that all had to pivot, and so there was a bit of time lost ramping that up. But once that was all in place, animation, I guess, is not easily done, but it's adaptable to be done in a work from home environment. And then we were kind of, back at it. And I think the processes were maybe a little slower than they would have been otherwise, but, the quality of work was the same, and everybody really, dug in and did their best work and got us over the finish line. So I have to give them a big round of applause for pulling it all together in a super awful time. But we pulled it together, and now the show's coming out.
So my question is, have the plans for the Invincible live action movie changed at all? And we've heard a lot that they're going to be very different, which is very intriguing, because why would you make a comic book, an animated movie, and a live action film that are all the same?
Right.
Are you able to talk about that a little bit, about the differences, and if anything has changed based on what you've done with the animated series?
It's changed and is always changing, because we're knee deep in the development process, and that's gone on for a while. So, things are changing and evolving as they do in that process. I think that none of those changes are because of the animated series, though. We are very aware of what's going on in the animated series and are definitely pivoting away from that. Unfortunately, I can't go into any details on how we're doing that. But I wish I could.
Cool.
I don't know. Here, if I just talk slower and look off to the side, does that signal to you guys that we should change subjects?
Far off wonderment.
If I could just make one suggestion for that live action movie, just as long as the Grayson home is littered with Seth Rogen pottery in the background, I think that would be awesome, and I really hope that happens.
I think that's all of his contracts now.
Yeah, exactly. Debbie's like, well, Nolan's not home yet, but I just picked up this great vase. Look at this. Look how great this is.
It's by some artist down the street.
Okay, I don't smoke, but this house is covered in ashtrays. I don't even know what's going on.
It smells like this scent. It smells like some real dank shit. Mark, we should probably pick up some of that Seth Rogen weed. All right, let's jump into a quick lightning round style. Answer as quick as you want, and if you wanted to elaborate on any of this, we can do it, but just kind of real quick. It's sort of like a Pepsi Coke situation, and then you kind of answer, and here we go. First question, Robert. Okay. Favorite childhood superhero?
Spider-Man.
Favorite childhood supervillain?
Dr. Doom?
Yes! My favorite too. Superman or Batman?
Superman.
Captain America or Iron Man?
Batman's got no powers. I would say in my youth, Captain America. Post Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man.
Spider-Man or Wolverine?
Spider-Man, although Wolverine is a super cool character. I feel bad, but I don't know. Everything about Spider-Man, I love the look. It's the best costume design in the history of comics. All apologies to Corey Walker. But yeah, it's a great character.
Flash or Green Lantern?
I guess Green Lantern. I don't have the biggest affinity for DC characters, though. I gotta say, I do think it's funny that I don't know. I have a whole spiel about how DC characters are inherently dated because they were created so long ago. And like the idea of people with like magic rings and all that kind of stuff that they have, the fact that the Flash's costume originally like went into his ring is just like such a 1930s idea. Like why would you have a flat costume that goes in your ring? Like what are we talking about? Everything's ring based.
Yeah, there's a great bit where when Ryan Reynolds, before the Green Lantern movie came out, he hosted Saturday Night Live, and it was just announced he was cast as Green Lantern, and he made the joke in a monologue. I'll be playing a superhero based on what every kid loves: lanterns. And it's just it's a little it's a little bit of a tough. You're right. It's a little bit of a dated kind of a concept.
Yeah. When you're don't even know what a lantern is.
when you're
it's
in
like
the comic book world, yeah,
you hold with up kerosene in it.
It's so funny because when you're in that world, you don't even think about that stuff anymore. To me, Green Lantern is Green Lantern, and it's almost like
Yeah.
a real lantern in the real world is secondary to me.
Yeah.
After this concept, but it's so funny. Okay, speaking of DC
If
characters,
your superhero should never be based on a prop that was used by Ebenezer Scrooge.
who goes there? In
Here
brightest
comes the
days,
orange
man, and
corn
Coal
cob
Man.
pipe.
It's
Oh
Corncob
my
Pipe Man.
God.
Robert, Lex Luthor or Joker? Which do you prefer?
Ooh, I think Lex Luthor.
Wonder Woman or Aquaman?
Jeez.
This is like
I
the
guess I'll go
SATs,
Wonder Woman.
apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like Wonder Woman's got the cool island. Everybody gives Aquaman shit, but is talking to fish really lamer than having an invisible jet? Who thought of the invisible jet? I want you to look as if you're sitting in a chair as you zoom through
As you fly through the
sky.
clouds.
Like what?
That's great.
You're not invisible. Also, like,
but your jet
a
is.
jet's pretty big, so like even an invisible jet can't like. That's not really a stealth thing, Like I'm not like flying a jet into a secret base to like get in there. DC Comics are stupid, is what I'm trying to say.
All right, you're gonna love this next question.
Then you're gonna love this next one. Catwoman or Harley Quinn?
Catwoman, I guess.
Hulk or the Thing? Which do you prefer, Hulk or Thing?
The Hulk.
Scarlet Witch or Vision?
Scarlet Witch.
Storm or She-Hulk?
Storm.
Robert, I think I know this one, but Star Wars or Star Trek?
This is the toughest one. I mean, God damn it! Like I want to say I love them both equally. There's I think Star Trek is more important. So I think that there's more valuable social commentary in Star Trek. I think that it advanced things socially in a big way. I think that it represented where human technology could and possibly should go in a better way. So I guess I'll go. I mean, as a fan, I enjoy them both, but I think I'll say Star Trek edges things out.
Favorite video game of all time?
Of all time, this is tough. Mario Galaxy. Is that great?
Hey, mine's Tetris. So
I love that game.
That's awesome.
Love that game.
Favorite movie of all time? I know. I act the same way whenever I get this question, but
I mean, it's weird because it's like, I mean, I may have watched Transformers the movie the most.
The old school, the animated.
Yeah. Not the Michael Bay one, although I do love the Michael Bay ones. But the old animated one. I watched Army of Darkness on a loop every night when I went to bed in high school. Like I had a VHS tape of that, and I would just turn it on as I was going to sleep. And I'd set a timer on my TV to go off after I fell asleep, and I would just, I could almost say that movie verbatim. I just love that movie. I don't know. It's a Speed Racer.
Oh, good. Hector
Great
has
pick.
a special affinity for Speed Racer.
I don't know if you're teasing, but I legit love Speed Racer. That movie is bonkers.
Yeah.
I love Kubrick movies. I'm a huge fan of Tarantino. I hate to pick a movie that's so new, but Jesus Christ, like if you, like any given day, if you were like, what movie would you like to watch right now? The movie I would probably most frequently pop on just to watch at a random time is that Speed Racer movie. It is to me cinematic perfection.
Hey, don't feel bad. One of my favorite movies of all time is Nacho Libre. So that movie,
that is a terrible movie. How dare you? It's
and you cannot tell me otherwise.
You really won Augustine over with Dr. Doom, and I think you just you do love Nacho Libre. But actually, Robert, I'm so happy you picked Speed Racer because over the years, I mean, that movie came out in 2008, the weekend after the first Iron Man, so nobody saw it in theaters. But the thing I love about that movie is that over the years, I've read into it that to me, it's a movie about artists trying to make art and maintain art in a very commercial world. And it's so weird that you picked that movie because to me, it does kind of sum up your career as a writer. You are someone who has lived in a very mainstream comic book world. You found a lot of success on your own and doing your own things. And now we're talking about an animated series based on your own creator-owned comic series. And it feels like one of the reasons you are probably my favorite comic book writer of all time is because we love a lot of the same stuff, and your take on these worlds and things like superheroes or zombies or whatever are such great takes, and you have such strong, passionate opinions about the material that when you read Invincible, it really does feel like it is the ultimate end-all be-all superhero story, and it's just such a rewarding thing, man. So I want to thank you, Robert, for talking to us for as long as you did. This is an absolute thrill. Really, truly, this is so great that we got to chat with you and that Adam got into Invincible, and Augustine and I are stoked for the series, and we hope that everybody watching right now is going to check out the Invincible animated series when it drops Friday, March 26th, with 3 episodes on Amazon Prime. Do check that out and be reading the comic book if you're not already, and you can even read along with us because we've got all of those early volumes up to like volume 7 or something, I think, right now covered, including that great Spider-Man crossover, which is great. Robert, thanks again for joining us, man. This was a blast.
Oh, thank you. This was awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. A lot of fun.